The California sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples as I stood at the edge of the water. 1 year since my divorce from Jessica, and the weight I had carried for years was finally gone. I breathed deeper these days, smiled more often, and rediscovered who Dean Carter really was underneath all the pain. Then my phone lit up with a familiar number. After all this time, Jessica was calling. Why now? What could she possibly want after discovering I was happier without her? Before I tell you about that call, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever escaped a toxic relationship. I met Jessica Thompson on a rainy Seattle morning at the coffee shop near my office building. I was 28, working as a software developer at a growing tech company. That particular day, I was rushing to grab my Americano before a client meeting when I bumped into her, nearly spilling my coffee all over her cream blouse. "I am so sorry," I stammered, steadying my cup. She looked up with these piercing blue eyes that immediately caught my attention. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves around her face, and when she smiled, it lit up the entire room. "No harm done," she replied with a slight laugh. "Though you could make it up to me by buying my next coffee." Jessica was 27, working in marketing for a competitor company. She was confident, intelligent, and had this magnetic energy about her. We exchanged numbers, and by that weekend I had taken her to Marcello's, this upscale Italian restaurant downtown that I had been saving for a special occasion. Our first date turned into a second, then a third. Before I knew it, we were spending every weekend together, talking until the early morning hours about everything from childhood memories to our dreams for the future. We both loved hiking the Pacific Northwest trails, watching obscure foreign films, and had the same offbeat sense of humor. Those first months were intoxicating. We took weekend trips to Portland and Vancouver. We cooked elaborate meals together, in my small apartment kitchen. She introduced me to wine tasting, and I taught her how to rock climb at the indoor gym. Everyone commented on how perfect we seemed together, how our personalities complemented each other. My parents adored her when I brought her home for Thanksgiving, and her friends quickly accepted me into their circle. After a year of dating, I proposed during a sunset kayak trip on Lake Washington. I had hidden the ring in a waterproof bag and nearly dropped it in the lake in my nervousness. But when she said yes, it felt like everything in my life had led to this perfect moment. Our wedding took place at a beautiful vineyard in Napa Valley. Jessica had planned every detail meticulously, from the string quartet that played during the ceremony to the handcrafted party favors. Looking back now, I should have noticed how stressed she became over every minor imperfection, how she snapped at the caterers when the appetizers were served 2 minutes late, but I was too caught up in the magic of marrying the woman I loved. After honeymooning in Greece, we settled into married life in a modest but charming 3-bedroom house in a quiet Seattle suburb. I remember walking through the empty rooms with Jessica, discussing which would become our home office and which might someday be a nursery. I felt so complete, so certain that we were building something lasting and beautiful. We talked about our future constantly. 2 kids, maybe 3, advancing in our careers, eventually traveling around the world together once we had built enough savings. I was content with our starter home and my reliable sedan, focusing on building our nest egg responsibly. Jessica, however, began dropping hints about wanting more. "The Andersons just bought that gorgeous Craftsman in Bellevue," she would say, or "Sarah from my office just got the new Tesla, and it has every feature imaginable." At first, these comments seemed innocent enough, just observations. But slowly they became more pointed, more frequent. "When are you going to ask for that raise? John makes $15,000 more than you in a similar position. This neighborhood is fine for now, but we cannot stay here forever if we want good schools for our future children." 8 months into our marriage, the cracks began to show more clearly. I came home excited one evening, having landed a major client for my company. I thought Jessica would be proud that we would celebrate together. Instead, her response felt cold. "That is great. But when will that translate to an actual promotion?" "Mike, from your department got moved up last month." "Right." The criticism about my career became a regular feature in our conversations. Jessica had switched jobs to a higher-paying position at a prestigious marketing firm and started comparing our salaries, our career trajectories. No matter what success I achieved, it never seemed to measure up to her expectations. When I did get promoted to senior developer 6 months later, I was thrilled. My hard work had paid off, and the salary bump would help us save more toward our goals. I made dinner reservations at the Space Needle restaurant, wanting to celebrate properly. During what should have been a romantic dinner, Jessica spent most of the time on her phone. When I asked about it, she showed me Instagram photos of her college friend Rachel and her husband in their newly purchased waterfront property. Mark is 2 years younger than you, and already a vice president, she pointed out. Their house is twice the size of ours. The night devolved into an argument about my ambition with Jessica, suggesting I should be looking for positions at more prestigious companies that I was settling for less than I was worth. But what she really meant was less than what she wanted. To try to meet her growing expectations, I started working longer hours, taking on additional projects, doing everything I could to position myself for further advancement. I would leave before sunrise and return after dark, exhausted but hoping to finally earn her approval. As the months passed, her attitude toward my family changed as well. My mother, who had initially been one of Jessica's biggest supporters, became the target of subtle jabs and criticisms. Mom was too traditional, too simple in her tastes, too involved in our lives. The breaking point with my family came during my mother's 60th birthday. We had planned a surprise party at her favorite restaurant with relatives coming from across the country. Jessica claimed a migraine that morning and insisted she could not attend. When I returned home that evening, she was watching television, miraculously recovered, and complained that I had been gone all day. "Your family takes advantage of you," she said. "They expect you to drop everything whenever they need something." I slept on the couch that night, the first of many nights away from our bed. As our second year of marriage progressed, Jessica became increasingly controlling. She would casually check my phone while I was in the shower, scroll through my emails when I left my laptop open. At first, I did not think much of it. I had nothing to hide after all. But then came the accusations. "Who is Amanda from accounting? Why is she emailing you directly instead of going through your team lead? You laughed a little too much at what that waitress said tonight. Are you attracted to her?" My friendship with Brian, my best friend since college, became a particular point of contention. Brian had been my roommate for years before I met Jessica, had been the best man at our wedding. But Jessica found reasons to dislike him, claiming he was a bad influence, that he was jealous of our relationship. "He is still living like a college kid," she would say. Do you really want to be associated with someone like that at this point in your life? The weekly basketball games and occasional beer nights with Brian dwindled under the weight of Jessica's disapproval until they stopped altogether. When Brian called to check in, I would step outside to talk to him, knowing that speaking openly inside my own home would lead to an argument later. After a particularly stressful project at work, my team decided to go out for drinks to celebrate its completion. I texted Jessica to let her know I would be home late. Her response was immediate. "Who exactly is going?" I sent her the list of names, all colleagues she had met at company functions. She called me 5 minutes later, voice tight with anger. "Tina will be there. The one who just got divorced." "No, I do not think so. Come home now." When I explained that this was an important team bonding event, that my absence would be noticed by management, she hung up. I stayed for one drink, mingled briefly with my colleagues, and headed home, stomach churning with anxiety. Jessica was waiting in the living room, arms crossed. The argument that followed lasted until 3 a.m, with Jessica questioning my commitment to our marriage, suggesting that I valued work relationships over her feelings. Her criticism extended beyond my friendships to my appearance. The clothes I had worn for years were suddenly sloppy or immature. My comfortable weight was now letting myself go. To please her, I bought an expensive new wardrobe, started a strict diet and exercise regimen. I lost 20 pounds, changed my haircut, replaced my glasses with contacts. None of it was enough. Each change I made seemed to embolden Jessica to find new flaws. The workplace incidents began around this time. Jessica would call multiple times during meetings, and if I did not answer her texts, would become increasingly frantic, then angry. My concentration suffered, my work quality declined. I started taking personal calls in stairwells and empty conference rooms, trying to manage her emotions while maintaining my professional responsibilities. The worst incident happened during a presentation to the executive team. I had silenced my phone, but Jessica appeared in person at the reception desk, causing such a disturbance that security was called. She claimed there was a family emergency. When I was pulled from the meeting, flushed with embarrassment, I found her furious because I had missed 3 calls while presenting. "Anything could have happened to me, and you would not even know, because you cannot be bothered to answer your phone," she shouted in the lobby. drawing stares from everyone passing by. The executive I had been presenting to walked past during her tirade. The next day, he suggested I might have some personal matters to sort out. The promotion I had been working toward went to someone else. The psychological toll mounted daily. I started having trouble sleeping, lying awake, analyzing my words and actions, wondering what might trigger Jessica's next outburst. My heart would race on my commute home, anticipating what mood might greet me. I lost more weight, but now from stress rather than diet. My manager called me into his office one afternoon to discuss my performance. "You used to be one of our strongest team members," he said kindly. "Is everything all right at home, Dean?" I brushed it off with vague assurances, but the truth was, nothing was right at home. I had begun to believe that maybe Jessica was correct, that I was selfish, inconsiderate, not good enough. The confident, easygoing person I had once been seemed like a distant memory. I started avoiding family gatherings, making excuses to my parents about work commitments. The truth was that Jessica would create such tension before, during, and after these events that they became unbearable. It was easier to stay away than to navigate her moods. The words she used about me changed too. What began as constructive criticism evolved into labels. I was lazy, unmotivated, a disappointment. When I landed a new client, despite my growing anxiety, she dismissed it as lucky timing. When I cooked dinner, she found fault with the seasoning, the presentation, the wine pairing. I started apologizing constantly for things that needed no apology. "Sorry the traffic made me 5 minutes late. Sorry I forgot to buy the specific brand of orange juice you wanted. Sorry I breathed too loudly while you were watching television." Looking in the mirror became difficult. The face staring back at me seemed foreign, the eyes lacking the spark they once held. I was a shadow of myself, walking on eggshells in my own home, second-guessing every decision, every word. Our second wedding anniversary arrived during this dark period. Despite everything, I wanted to make it special, to recapture some of what we had lost. I spent weeks planning a surprise, making reservations at Canlis, the most exclusive restaurant in Seattle, ordering a custom piece of jewelry from an artisan whose work Jessica had admired, arranging for her favorite flowers to be delivered. Throughout the day, I left work early to pick up the final details, texting Jessica to be ready at 7. No response. By 6:30, with no word from her, I started calling, straight to voicemail. 7 o'clock came and went. I called her friends, none of whom had heard from her. By 9, panic had set in, and I was considering calling hospitals. At 11:15, my phone finally rang. Jessica was at the Loft, a trendy bar downtown, and her speech was slurred. The background noise nearly drowned out her voice. "You should come get me," she giggled. "I might not make it home otherwise." I found her with a group of coworkers, visibly intoxicated. When I reminded her about our anniversary, she rolled her eyes. "Oh God, was that tonight?" "Sorry, not sorry," she said loud enough for her friends to hear. "Did you have some boring dinner planned? Probably at that seafood place I hate, right?" Her coworkers laughed, and one of them, a man I had never met, put his arm around her shoulders with uncomfortable familiarity. I drove her home in humiliated silence, her occasional snarky comments the only sound. While Jessica slept off the alcohol, I sat in the dark living room, surrounded by gift wrap and wilting flowers. Out of some masochistic impulse, I checked her phone, something I had never done before, despite her regular invasions of my privacy. The text messages I found between her and the man from the bar, David from her marketing team, went back months. They were flirtatious at first, then explicitly inappropriate. Plans made hotel rooms booked. The most recent exchange had been that very morning, coordinating their accidental meeting at the Loft. When Jessica woke the next morning, I confronted her with what I had found. Instead of remorse, she attacked. "If you satisfied me emotionally and physically, I would not have to look elsewhere," she shouted, throwing a coffee mug against the wall. "This is your fault. You have been checked out of this marriage for months." The gaslighting was so extreme, it momentarily made me question reality. Had I been the problem all along? But as she continued her verbal assault, something inside me finally broke free. The fog of self-doubt lifted just enough for me to see the situation clearly. I packed a suitcase while she screamed and threw things around our bedroom. I called Brian, who immediately offered his couch. As I headed for the door, Jessica switched tactics, dissolving into tears, begging me not to leave, promising things would change. For the first time in our relationship, I did not cave to her emotional manipulation. I walked out the door, hands shaking but steps steady. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice finding its strength again. The divorce process was even more painful than the marriage had become. Jessica refused to sign the initial papers, dragging out what could have been a straightforward separation. She alternated between pleading for reconciliation and vindictive attacks on my character. She told our mutual friends that I had been the unfaithful one, that I had become emotionally abusive, that she was the victim of my midlife crisis. Some believed her cutting me out of their lives without ever hearing my side. Others recognized the pattern of behavior they had witnessed throughout our marriage and stood by me. Jessica fought for everything in the settlement, demanding the house, claiming she deserved alimony, despite earning more than me in her new position. Her lawyer was aggressive, portraying me as a neglectful husband who had abandoned his wife without cause. My own attorney advised me that fighting every battle would drain me financially and emotionally. Sometimes winning means walking away with your dignity and your future intact, my lawyer counseled. I conceded more than was fair. The house I had made most of the payments on went to Jessica. My retirement savings were split despite her own substantial accounts. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment downtown, starting over at 30, with little more than my clothes and some personal items. The financial setback was significant, but the emotional toll was far greater. In the months after moving out, I fell into a depression deeper than anything I had experienced before. I lost 12 pounds from my already lean frame. Sleep came in short bursts, interrupted by anxiety dreams. I would wake gasping for air, reliving arguments, imagining confrontations. Work became my only refuge, the one place where I still felt competent, but even there, I was a diminished version of myself. The divorce proceedings meant regular court appearances, each one requiring me to face Jessica and her fabricated version of our marriage. Sitting across from her in mediation sessions, watching her cry on cue for the mediator, then shoot me a cold glare, when attention shifted, was its own form of torture. 9 months after I walked out the door, the divorce was finally completed. I had lost much financially, but as I signed the final papers, I felt the first real sense of freedom in years. That night alone in my apartment, I cried, not from sadness but from relief. The pressure that had been crushing my chest for so long finally eased. I slept through the night for the first time in years. The rebuilding process began slowly. A friend recommended a therapist specializing in emotional abuse recovery, and I started weekly sessions. Dr. Martinez helped me recognize the patterns in my marriage, the red flags I had overlooked, the ways I had been manipulated into doubting my own perceptions. "What you experienced has a name," she told me. Gaslighting, emotional abuse, narcissistic control. Understanding it is the first step to ensuring you never go through it again. The therapy was difficult, forcing me to confront painful memories and my own role in allowing the relationship to damage me for so long. But each session left me feeling more grounded, more reconnected to the person I had been before Jessica. Physically, I began rebuilding as well. I rejoined my old gym, not to meet Jessica's impossible standards this time, but to regain my strength and energy. The endorphins from regular exercise helped lift the lingering depression, and watching my body grow stronger became a metaphor for my emotional recovery. I reached out to Brian, apologizing for my absence in his life. His response brought me to tears. "Dude, you have nothing to be sorry for. I watched her isolate you and could not do anything to stop it. I am just glad you got out." Our friendship rekindled quickly, and through him, I reconnected with other friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. Weekend hiking trips, basketball games, and simple nights playing video games and ordering pizza became regular features of my new life. 3 months after the divorce finalized, I took my first solo vacation, a week-long trip to Alaska that Jessica had always vetoed, as too rugged, too cold, too lacking in luxury amenities. I stood on a glacier, went dog sledding, saw the northern lights dance across the sky. Every experience felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, rediscovering my own desires and preferences that had been buried under Jessica's demands. At work, freed from the constant interruptions and emotional drainage of my marriage, my performance improved dramatically. I took the lead on a challenging new project, integrating artificial intelligence into our platform, something I had been interested in, but never had the mental bandwidth to pursue while with Jessica. The project was a success, earning recognition from senior management. 6 months post-divorce, I was promoted to technical director with a substantial salary increase and a team reporting to me. The validation was sweet not because it proved anything to Jessica, but because it confirmed what I had begun to suspect during recovery. I was competent, valuable, and capable of success on my terms. With the improved financial situation, I moved to a nicer apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and Elliott Bay beyond. Each piece of furniture I selected, each decision about the space was made according to my own taste. The result was a home that reflected me completely, a sanctuary that contained no painful memories. I even began dating again casually at first. Coffee meetings and dinner dates with no pressure or expectations. I was transparent about my divorce experience, using it to screen potential partners for red flags similar to Jessica's behavior. Some connections fizzled after one or two meetings, but others developed into pleasant friendships. I was in no rush to commit again, enjoying the freedom to discover what I truly wanted in a relationship. Approximately 1 year after our divorce was finalized, Jessica stumbled across news of my promotion. I had updated my LinkedIn profile, and a mutual connection had congratulated me there. Within days, I noticed increased activity on my social media accounts. New views on old photos, likes on professional updates from an anonymous account that disappeared when I tried to view it. Then came the coincidental encounters. Jessica appeared at my regular coffee shop one morning, acting surprised to see me despite the fact I had visited the same cafe at the same time every Wednesday for months. "Dean, what are the chances?" she exclaimed, looking more polished than I remembered clearly, dressed to impress. "You look great. The single life must agree with you." I kept the interaction brief and professional, making it clear I had a meeting to get to. The flash of irritation in her eyes was familiar, but no longer intimidating. The following week, she appeared at a restaurant where I was having dinner with colleagues. Then at the farmer's market I frequented on weekends. Each time with the same manufactured surprise, each time trying to extend the interaction beyond my comfortable boundaries. She began reaching out to mutual friends, asking detailed questions about my life. Was I seeing anyone? Had I mentioned her? Did I seem happy? Most friends were kind enough to warn me about her inquiries. The text messages started next. Simple at first, ostensibly about practical matters. "I found some old mail addressed to you. When can I drop it off? Do you remember where we stored the warranty for the kitchen appliances? Cannot seem to find it." When I suggested she mail the letters and directed her to the filing cabinet where all warranties had always been kept, she pivoted to more personal outreach. "Been thinking about you. Hope you are doing well. Remember that trip to Vancouver? Found some photos today. Good memories." I maintained minimal polite responses, never encouraging further conversation. The frequency of her texts increased their tone, becoming increasingly nostalgic and emotionally loaded. Through industry contacts, I learned she had been asking about me at professional events, approaching my coworkers with questions thinly veiled as casual interest. One junior developer on my team reported an uncomfortable lunch where Jessica had pressed for details about my leadership style, my current projects, even whether I mentioned my previous marriage. The escalation came one night at 2 a.m. when my phone rang repeatedly. When I finally answered, Jessica was clearly intoxicated, her words slurring together. "I miss you," she sobbed. "I made a mistake. We made mistakes, but we could fix it, Dean. I know we could. Jessica, it is late, and you have been drinking. This is not appropriate. You were the love of my life," she cried, her voice rising. "And now I see you everywhere looking happier than you ever were with me, and it is killing me. How could you move on so easily if what we had was real?" I ended the call as gently but firmly as possible, then blocked her number. The next day, she emailed both my personal and work addresses with a lengthy emotional plea for a second chance. After weeks of Jessica's escalating attempts to re-enter my life, I agreed to meet her once in a public coffee shop, with clear boundaries established in advance. My therapist had suggested that a direct conversation might be the only way to achieve closure for both of us. I arrived early, selecting a table with a clear path to the exit and in full view of the staff. Jessica walked in 10 minutes late, wearing the perfume she knew I had once loved, dressed in the blue that matched her eyes, every detail calculated to evoke nostalgia. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice softer than I remembered. "You look wonderful, Dean. What did you want to discuss?" "Jessica." I kept my tone neutral, my body language closed. She launched into what felt like a rehearsed speech about regret, growth, and second chances. As she spoke, I noticed the familiar patterns. The subtle blame shifting, the minimization of her actions, the focus on my supposed role in our problems. I was going through a difficult time, she explained. Work pressure, family issues. You were so absorbed in your own career that you did not notice how much I was struggling. I let her continue uninterrupted, observing with newfound clarity the manipulation techniques that had once clouded my judgment. When she reached for my hand across the table, I gently withdrew it. The truth is, she said, tears welling in her eyes, I cannot stand seeing you so happy without me. It drives me crazy thinking about you building this amazing new life while I am still in that house with all our memories. We were supposed to have that success together. There it was. The real reason for her renewed interest. Not love, not genuine regret, but the intolerable reality that I was thriving in her absence. Jessica, I said calmly, our relationship ended because it was unhealthy. You were unfaithful, yes, but more fundamentally, you were controlling and emotionally abusive. I lost myself trying to make you happy, and it was never enough. Her expression hardened momentarily before she composed herself. That is not fair. I pushed you because I saw your potential. Everything I did was because I loved you so much. That was not love, I replied. Love does not diminish someone. It does not isolate them from friends and family. It does not create constant anxiety and self-doubt. She tried another approach, reminding me of good times, suggesting that what we had was worth fighting for, that few people find their soulmate. The old dean might have wavered, might have taken on the responsibility for her happiness again. But I was no longer that person. I wish you well, Jessica. Genuinely. I hope you find peace and happiness. But that future cannot include me. Her demeanor changed instantly, the vulnerability replaced by cold anger. You will regret this. No one will ever understand you like I do. No one will challenge you to be better. I smiled slightly, recognizing the threat disguised as concern, the final attempt to instill fear of a future without her. Thank you for that perspective. I need to go now. As I stood to leave, I added one last thought. In an odd way, I am grateful for our relationship. It taught me what I do not want, what I will never accept again. It showed me my own strength. For that lesson, I thank you. Her face flushed with anger, but I did not stay to hear her response. I walked out of the coffee shop feeling lighter, as if the final tether to my past had been severed. The year following that final meeting brought complete transformation. With Jessica firmly in the past, I focused entirely on building the future I wanted. I maintained the boundaries I had established, changing my email addresses and increasing privacy settings on social media after a few more attempted contacts from her. Through therapy and self-reflection, I gained clarity about the warning signs I had ignored in our relationship. The love bombing in the beginning, the swift progression, the gradual isolation, the constant criticism disguised as helpful suggestions, the emotional volatility that kept me walking on eggshells, the way she reframed reality to make me question my own perceptions. These insights not only helped me process my past, but prepared me to build healthier relationships in the future. I learned to value my autonomy, to recognize the difference between compromise and sacrifice, to establish and maintain boundaries. The professional success continued, with my team developing innovations that brought industry recognition. I began speaking at conferences, sharing technical expertise I had once been too insecure to claim. Each achievement reinforced my self-trust, my belief in my own capabilities independent of external validation. My personal life flourished as well. I deepened friendships with people who celebrated my success without envy, who offered support without demands. I reconnected with family, rebuilding the bonds that had frayed during my marriage. My parents commented often on the return of my smile, my laugh, the light in my eyes they had missed for so long. Through a professional networking event, I met Allison, an environmental engineer with a quick wit and genuine warmth. Our relationship developed slowly, with honest communication about our expectations and histories. When I shared my experience with Jessica, Allison listened without judgment, then shared her own past relationship challenges. The contrast between my dynamic with Jessica and with Allison could not have been more stark. Where Jessica demanded, Allison discussed. Where Jessica controlled, Allison collaborated. Where Jessica criticized, Allison supported. I discovered the ease of a relationship built on mutual respect and authentic affection, one where I could be fully myself without fear of rejection or ridicule. Looking back now on my journey from the controlled, diminished person I had become in my marriage to the confident, peaceful man I am today, I recognize the profound gift of that painful experience. Without hitting that rock bottom, I might never have discovered my capacity for resilience, my right to happiness on my own terms. The greatest lesson was learning that true happiness never comes from external validation or another person's approval. It grows from self-acceptance, from living authentically, from maintaining inner peace, even when faced with others' disapproval. For anyone listening who recognizes their own experience in my story, know that there is life after emotional abuse, a rich, full life of your own design. The first step is the hardest: believing you deserve better and taking action to claim it. But I promise you, the freedom waiting on the other side is worth every difficult moment of the journey. So what is your story? Have you ever had to walk away from someone who could not handle seeing you happy without them? Or are you still finding the courage to make that break? Leave a comment below and share your experience. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more content that reminds us all that our worth is not determined by those who failed to value us. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to leave.